Shalom and welcome to this week's ICEJ webinar. We're so glad you joined us again. I'm David Parsons, coming to you from our global headquarters here in Jerusalem for the International Christian Embassy. Now, we want to take you into a session last week at our Envision Pastors Conference. We had pastors from about 20 nations here in Jerusalem, and they got a briefing, a security update from IDF Brigadier General Amir Aviv. He's in the reserves. He's the head of the Israel Defense and Security Forum. It's a major sort of think tank and movement here in Israel to help shape the security debate. He held all sorts of positions within the IDF, including in the Comptroller's Office and assistant to the Chief of Staff. So he knows the military, he knows all the right sources to go to for the latest information. Of course, we're interested in Gaza, what's happening there, but especially is the United States, President Trump, is he going to order an attack on Iran? So this was just a few days ago, a briefing by General Amir Aviv on this important question. I hope you enjoy it.
So just putting things in context, I served 30 years in the IDF in many positions, participated in all the operations and all the wars. And there were two things that really, really impacted me in this 30 years of service. The first story I want to tell you shortly is that in April 2002, at the beginning of Operation Defensive Shield, an operation that was launched because we had endless amount of terror attacks emanating from Arab cities in Judea and Samaria, mostly suicide bombers with explosive belts exploding all over Israel. And in April 2002, we launched a very big operation, tens of thousands of soldiers, to really destroy this terror infrastructure. We did in 2002, maybe what we're doing now on the 7th of October, but now it's on a whole different scale. And in April 2002, I was given command of a battalion of 800 soldiers. And we found ourselves fighting the fiercest fight I've ever experienced in my military career. Day and night we were fighting, really foiling terror attacks, knowing that if we miss even one suicide bomber, the result will be devastating. And we fought like that for 10 months. And after 10 months, the soldiers, were really, really exhausted. And the command said to us, you have 3 weeks to organize, you are going to 10 months more. And this was tough on the soldiers. And so I took my whole battalion, 800 soldiers, to speak with them. And as I'm speaking with them, I found myself asking them a very strange question to ask an Israeli soldier. How many of you have ever in your life been in Jerusalem? And I found out half of my battalion has never been in Jerusalem. We're talking about Israeli soldiers. And the half that were in Jerusalem, half of them were not in the Kotel, in Temple Mount, or at least don't recall they were. And I understood at that moment that, I have great kids, but they have zero understanding what they're fighting for. And when you don't understand what you're fighting for, it's very, very hard to sustain the fight. We in IDSF say that national security is first and foremost about national values. It's about our connection to Judaism, to Zionism. It's the connection to the people of Israel, to the land. Without that, there is no tank and no spirit that can help. Or weapon that can help. It's all about spirit. I had 3 weeks. 1 week vacation after 10 months of fighting, 1 week to organize the equipment, and 1 week of training. I gave up my only week of training. To train a battalion like mine is at least 4 months. I gave up my 1 week of training and took my whole battalion for a whole week to Jerusalem. We went to David City. We connected 3,000 years back to the days of David. We went to the Kotel, to the tunnels, to the old city, to the new neighborhoods. We also went to the Knesset and to Yad Vashem. And in the last day, 800 soldiers sat at the president's house and spoke with the president of Israel. When this battalion went back to the battlefield, a completely transformed battalion, they fought like lions. And it was so amazing the way they fought, that 3 months into the fight, the chief of staff calls me to his office. I drive from Judea and Samaria to Tel Aviv to the Kiryat. I was very nervous, first time in the office of the chief of staff. And he asked me in the meeting, Amir, what's going on with your battalion? What's the story? And I told him, sir, it's all about spirit. It's all about connecting to our heritage, to our history, to our ethos. This is what is needed to win this war. So following that, and following my 2 years in the battlefield, I've decided to appoint me to be his aide-de-camp of the Chief of General Staff. And this is a huge change. I was fighting on the ground with the soldiers, the tactical level. Suddenly I find myself moving to the office of the Chief of Staff, working with all the generals, Minister of Defense, Prime Minister. And there I experienced the other really defining moment in my military career. At that time, we defeated terror on the mountains of Judea and Samaria. It was a fierce fight. Overall, it took us like 5 years to really stabilize completely the situation. But I can say that 2 years into the operation, we pretty much got back control of the situation. At the same time, Gaza, complete loss of control. Gaza, from 67 all the way to the early 90s, was a non-issue. Gaza was in the Stone Age. Then came Oslo, and we brought this terrible terror organization, the Palestinian Liberation Organization. We weaponized them. We gave them control over the cities in Gaza, and they used this moment to build a huge terror infrastructure. Gaza, from Oslo, which was implemented in 1994, went in 7 years from the Stone Age to shooting rockets at Israel. It's unbelievable. And we were still inside Gaza. We had towns inside Gaza. We were controlling Philadelphia corridor. Just by the fact that they were controlling their own cities and we didn't operate in them, it was enough to take Gaza from the Stone Age to shooting rockets. 10 years after Oslo, 2004, complete loss of control of the Gaza Strip. We went from a reality where we could drive with a car in the middle of Gaza City to a reality of whole brigades with APCs, with tanks, with snipers, fighting in the outskirts of these cities, and we couldn't contain the level of terror that was emanating from Gaza and also that was attacking our own towns inside Gaza. So the logical thing to do at that moment is we defeated the terror on the mountains of Judea and Samaria with 30,000 soldiers, not 500,000 like now. Let's take these 30,000 soldiers to Gaza and get it over with. Dismantle of this terror. It would have taken us maybe 2 months. It would have been over. And then we would have started a new thinking and process about what would be the solution in the long term in the Gaza Strip. Instead of that, one day the chief of staff and I are sitting in the office, the secretary comes in, says, open the TV, you need to see this. And we see Prime Minister Sharon at the time, we're talking about 2004, standing in Herzliya Convention and saying, I decided to pull out of Gaza and kick out 8,000 Jews. In the middle of a war in Gaza. This decision was taken without consulting with the army, without consulting with the Ministry of Defense, without talking to the National Security Council. Prime Minister in Israel simply stood in some convention and said, okay, bye, I'm going. So the chief of staff was shocked. We brought all the generals, we started assessing the situation, and a week later, there was a cabinet meeting. Now look, I attended many cabinet meetings, some of them pretty dramatic, but I will never, ever forget this meeting, and it pretty much shaped my views in the long term and really my decision to devote my life to securing Israel for generations to come. We were sitting in the cabinet meeting, the prime minister is at the head of the table, he slaps the table and says, I decided to pull out of Gaza. What's your assessment? And I'm thinking, you know, I was a young officer, a lieutenant colonel, I don't know, in the army, we usually assess first and then decide. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So the chief of staff says to the prime minister, Mr. Prime Minister, if you pull out of Gaza like that in 1 year, Gaza is going to become Hamastan, Al-Qaedastan, and Hezbollahstan. The head of Shin Bet says the same. If you connect Gaza to Egypt, endless amount of weapons, money, technology are going to pour into Gaza. We are going to lose control. And although this was the formal assessment of the defense establishment, the Prime Minister decided to move forward with his plans. It was amazing for me to see how easy it was to sell this to the general public. And I understood at that moment that if we are not going to build a very, very dominant national security organization that will dominate the public sphere of Israel, shaping hearts and minds of the young generation, the general public and decision makers, at any given moment, there can be a prime minister or a government that will take devastating decisions that the public don't understand. So I already had this understanding as a young lieutenant colonel, and I followed this reality throughout my 30 years of career. And when I retired, I spoke about it, I lectured about it, and then like 3-4 years into my retirement, I said, okay, that's it, I'm doing something about it. And I created IDSF, Israel's Defense and Security Forum. I started the organization with 8 officers, high-ranking officers. Today, more than 55,000 Israeli officers, commanders, operators. Today, we educate tens of thousands of youngsters. We have a research institute that is the most impactful institute working with the government and diplomats. We dominate national TV and social media, and we do a lot of grassroots activities. Now, I can tell you that 2 years before the war, we were talking on WhatsApp. Really, everybody was really alert, and we said we have to meet urgently. 2 years before the war, we felt something big is happening. We met urgently Friday morning in my garden, and in this meeting, after 3 hours, we got to the conclusion war is imminent. We are going to war. There is going to be a multi-front war. And we said to ourselves, okay, what do we do with this information? And we decided to write a very extensive national security assessment. If you go into our website, idsf.org.il, you can read parts of this assessment. We presented this assessment to the previous government, to Netanyahu, to the leadership of the security establishment, and we said to them, we are going to war. There is going to be a multi-front war, and we have only 2 choices, or 6-day war scenario or Yom Kippur scenario. We need to decide. Are we going to be proactive and attack first, or are we going to be attacked? And it's going to be by surprise. And in this assessment, we talked about 4 potentially existential threats to Israel and the Jewish people. And we didn't talk just about Israel. We talked also about the Jewish people. One threat we talked about was Iran and all its proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis in Yemen, militias in Iraq and in Syria. We looked at this as one ecosystem composed of rockets, missiles, drones, and command on our borders, with an attempt to put a nuclear umbrella above all of that. What I'm saying here, that these 2 years of war we have been experiencing, everything that happened in the last 2 years, one threat out of 4, which we outlined in our assessment. The second threat we talked about is the next threat. It's immediate, it's relevant for the coming months and year or 2. We called it the fight over the land of Israel. So the first threat is the borders and beyond, all the way to Iran, Yemen. The second threat is what's going on inside the land of Israel. It's basically the way we explained it. It's the same Israeli-Arab conflict that has been going on for 120 years. So yes, during this 120 years, things happened, and there was the Oslo, and now you have Arabs in Judea and Samaria that have a Palestinian idea, and you have Bedouins in the Negev, and you have Arabs living in mixed cities and in Jerusalem and in the north. But when you look at the phenomena that we're experiencing in the land of Israel, it's all the same. This threat doesn't know a green line, or doesn't distinguish between Judea and Samaria or the Negev or the Galil. We are talking about massive illegal grab of land. We are talking about protection. We are talking about amassing almost 1 million weapons, illegal, in the hands of parts of the Israeli Arab society. And I want to be crystal clear. Not all the Israeli Arab society is a problem. You saw the Lieutenant Colonel. In my organizations, we have Bedouins and Arabs who are part of the organization. There are parts of the Israeli Arab society that are 100% aligned with Israel. There are parts who are half aligned, but there is not a small part, 20% maybe a bit more, that really, really hate Israel. And this is a lot of people because we're talking about hundreds of thousands. They completely look at themselves as Palestinians. They want to get rid of Israel, and this is a very, very big problem. And this is something we haven't been dealing with seriously, and we'll have to deal with this looking forward. The third threat we talked about is the growing anti-Semitism. 2 years before the war, we said anti-Semitism is growing exponentially. It's not going to stop, and Israel must prioritize dealing with the challenges Jews are having all over the world, and we believe it's not going to stop. It's going to grow exponentially. It didn't start on the 7th of October. It was very, very high even before. And we need to be ready for two things. One is defending the Jews around the world. Two, preparing for massive aliyah to Israel. And what we foresee is millions that are going to come to Israel. And Israel is not prepared. We are not building enough. We are not facilitating this for the Jews. And we have to. The last threat, all these threats I talked about now are external. The last threat is the most important one. And the last threat is us, the Jews. Our distancing from core Jewish Zionist values, forgetting the Bible, forgetting our story, forgetting that we are the heroes of the story, not the villains in our own story. And we have to go back to be what we were meant to be, the chosen people. And I think that to really be able to deal with all these big challenges the Jewish people are facing, and when we talk about unity, there is no unity without connecting to the same vision. And this is the vision of the Bible. This is our story. This is the vision of Zionism. This is the vision of the resurrection of the Jewish people and returning back to our homeland. This is about Zionism. And we talk a lot about that, and we revive this proudness the Jewish people must have in their own identity and their own story. I always say to Jewish communities around the world, yes, we are facing many challenges and problems, and I soon, the last 10 minutes, talk about the war, but you don't give up your identity to solve problems. You want to solve problems, strengthen your identity. Be proud of who you are. Be proud of the Jewish people and the land of Israel and of our Bible and history. This is the way to solve problems, not disregarding who we are. So definitely we're facing many challenges. And now I want to speak a bit about the war and where all this is going. I can say that on the 7th of October, when the war started and everybody was shocked, completely shocked, we knew war was coming. We are the kind of officers and generals that were born for these moments. We thrive in wars. This is our profession. So 4 hours into the war, when we understood that it's only Hamas attacking and what we envisioned didn't happen, they didn't attack us simultaneously from all fronts. They did a huge mistake. So 4 hours into the war, already we knew we were going to win. When everybody was shocked and was looking at the atrocities Hamas was doing in the south from a general's point of view, looking at a big war, we knew that's it, we're going to win the war. And I can tell you that a week and a half into the war, 300,000 soldiers amassed outside of Gaza. And the big question, are we going in or not? And at this defining moment, everybody was frightened, and there was pressure from the US not to go into Gaza, and they threatened us that thousands of soldiers will be killed. At this defining moment, the Prime Minister called us to the Kiryat, to Tel Aviv, to the headquarters of the army. We came there, 8 generals. And when I was sitting outside waiting for the meeting, it was the atmosphere of war. I said to myself, this feels to me like a Churchillian moment. When Churchill was elected, the whole Europe was conquered. The British Army was surrounded in Dunkirk on the verge of extinction. And it's this really most terrible moment for the British people. Churchill stands at the parliament and gives this inspiring speech talking about victory. We'll fight in the beaches, in the land, in the air. We're not going to stop until we have victory. And he uplifted the British people into a big war, 5 years, until they reach total victory. And I said to myself, when we go inside to speak with Netanyahu, this is not just about giving him the right professional advice, what to do with Division 99 or 162. This is about spirit. So we go in and we sit, and I sit exactly in front of the Prime Minister, and I look at him, and he looks sad and tired and pale. Terrible moment for a Prime Minister in this situation. And I look at him, I said to him, you know, Mr. Prime Minister, I cannot even imagine how you feel. You must be feeling terrible. The sights of the 7th of October, this huge, terrible event, and you are probably asking yourself, how did it happen to me? You are all about security. But I want to tell you something, you must not feel like that. You are privileged. I wish I was sitting on your chair. You were chosen to lead Israel in its most defining war in its history. You were chosen for that. All your life prepared you for this moment. And now you have to seize the moment. Yes, it started in a terrible way. But now we have to use this crisis and move towards the biggest victory the Jewish people have ever had. And you were chosen for that. And the generals told him, look, we know how disappointed you are from the army and the Shin Bet, terrible failure. But there are 300,000 soldiers amassed outside Gaza. We know the commanders, we know the soldiers. Give them the command. When they will go in, nothing will stop them. Because the God of Israel is going in front of them. We are the people of Israel. When we go to war, nothing can stop us. So when we finished the meeting, you know, Netanyahu approached me and hugged me strongly. And he's not a hugger, believe me. And he said, thank you, and left the room. 2 days later, he gave the command to go into Gaza. And from that moment onwards, we are moving steadily towards the biggest victory in our history. We defeated Hamas, and I'll talk about what will happen now with Hamas. We defeated Hezbollah, we defeated Syria. We did this amazing attack on Iran, 12 days, a real miracle. Not one soldier was hurt, not one airplane. 12 days against a country as big as Iran. And after all of that, we see a kind of ceasefire in Lebanon, a ceasefire in Gaza, and we entered a period of time that is a period of time which I would define as an operational stop. And we're about to finish this operational stop, which included also bringing back all the hostages. And you know, the last hostage we returned is Rani Gvili, a real Israeli hero. And yesterday, the Gvili family asked us in IDSF to build a pre-army program for Rani. And we're going to do the first pre-police program in the history of Israel in the name of Rani Gvili. And we are very, very proud to do so. So what happened, there was a sense like, okay, that's it, the war is over. But no, it's not. We didn't yet reach the goals of war. Yes, we brought all the hostages back, but the goals of war says we need to dismantle Hamas completely. We need to demilitarize the Gaza Strip. And now we see something we couldn't have imagined a year ago, or even 4 months ago, an opportunity to bring down the Iranian regime. And I think we're really witnessing a moment that our prophecies are being fulfilled. We foresaw this war thousands of years back, the days of Zechariah and Jeremiah. And I can tell you that in the coming weeks and months, we're going back to a full-scale war on all fronts. The army has prepared to go into the remaining strongholds of Hamas and completely dismantle Hamas. When this war will be over, there will be no Hamas. I want you to know that. In Iran, there is, in my assessment, a clear decision, American-Israeli decision. This regime is going down. It's not going to stay. And when we bring down the Iranian regime, its proxies will collapse. Hezbollah, Houthis, militias in Iraq, we are not going to give up the opportunity to bring down this regime, and certainly not when it seems committed to the complete destruction of the State of Israel and the US. They didn't learn the lesson in the 12-day war. They are building again capabilities. They are producing around-the-clock ballistic missiles. They are renewing the nuclear activities. They are funding billions, their proxies, and this is while they cannot provide water and electricity, and they don't have a functioning currency. So they don't care. If you ask me what's their state of mind, they look to me exactly like Pharaoh. No matter how much you hit them, their heart is hardened more and more. They are doing things that, if you think about it logically, it's not logic. You cannot explain what is happening in Iran in a logical way. It doesn't make sense what they're doing. The Americans are amassing a huge army with a clear intention to completely destroy this regime, and everything the regime is doing is exactly the opposite of what logic dictates. And this is, only God can do that. And now, at the moment, the US is amassing its forces, a lot of training, a lot of readiness. Also, the US needs to create I would say legitimacy internationally, and this is why there is also talks and diplomacy. But looking at what's going on with Iran, there is no way to bridge between what Israel and the US demand to what the Iranians are willing to do. And therefore, war is imminent. And we will witness at a certain moment a massive attack on Iran with a clear intention to bring down the regime. Is it going to start with an Israeli attack? Is it going to start with an American attack? Is it going to start with a preemptive Iranian attack? We don't know. Anything can happen. It's a very, very sensitive moment. But this war is imminent and it's going to happen soon, pretty soon, in the coming weeks, months, too. US time is not Israeli time. The US, it takes more time to do things. We decide in the morning and execute in the evening. It doesn't work like that. With the US, it's a big country. So I want to finish by saying something I've been saying from the 7th of October. 7th of October, on Prime TV in Israel, in the most terrible moment, I stood in all the main TV channels and said what I'm going to say now. The bigger the win will be, the more decisive it's going to be, and it's going to be. We're going to win decisively this war. The greater the golden age of Israel and the Jewish people will be the day after. The day after this war, there will be peace agreements, and the economy is going to boom, and there is going to be massive aliyah to Israel, and it's going to be also baby boom. We spent a lot of time in the shelters. So great things are awaiting for the Jewish people, and all we need to do is stay united, be strong, believe in our God, and win this war. Thank you.
Well, we hope you got a lot out of that. I think General Aviv is very well informed, and we'll see if his assessment holds out. We are still sort of on the edge here in Jerusalem on whether the U.S. will attack Iran. Is Israel going to be involved? Is Israel going to get drug into it by Iranian rockets raining down on their cities again? We shall see. This is a matter for your prayer and your constant concern. So please stick with us here on the ICEJ webinar series. God bless you from Jerusalem.
Thank you for joining us today. Join us again next Thursday at 3 p.m. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on our social media platforms for more exclusive ICEJ content.